All right. So, hi, it's Mark Chandler from the International Game Summit on Mental Health, and I'm here with Jason Docton from Rise Against the Order, or as they commonly referred to as RAD. And I'm not too sure if you're aware of this or not, Jason. When you type in RAD on Facebook, it actually gives you like one of those little kind of little things that jumps up, kind of like when you type congratulations or anniversary or
Oh,
something like that. Are you aware of that?
no, you did call us Rise Against the Order. I like that. That sounds
Oh
more.
God,
That sounds maybe more appropriate for us to.
might be. I, I guess it would probably be more appropriate if we're talking about some sort of revolution or something like that. It was like
Yeah,
1984 or something like that. But
we are based
yeah,
in the States, so it's,
yeah, who knows? There's still time. So um, rise above the disorder. I apologize profusely. Um, and me and you only met like 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
and uh, we're going to have this conversation about this topic called "It Takes a Village," and that's about how do we, as the gaming industry and community ourselves, take better care of each other. Um, and This isn't the happiest thing to say, but it's almost a week doesn't go by where you hear somebody taking their life within the gaming industry. Sometimes I know them, sometimes I don't. Um, when we did TIGS last year, which was October, I think, 12th and 13th, only like 5 days before TIGS, or the Saturday before, we started on a Wednesday. Um, I really wanted to bring suicide to the forefront, and Tammy McDonald came on board and did a fireside chat talking about the loss of her husband. And they're both people that have been fixtures in the gaming industry for the past 25 years now. And it was a absolutely heart-wrenching talk, but it was something that needed to be said. So some of these people that some of these people we might know, some of these people we might not know. And what happened was 5 days before TIGS itself, Tammy reached out to me, and we basically said, have you seen the latest person who had taken their life? And I thought she was talking about a streamer who had done it like the Saturday before, the Friday before. And I was like, yeah, I saw the guy, but I didn't really know him too well, or know of him that well. And then she goes, no, there was another one. This was Saturday morning. And she goes, there was another one yesterday. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she sends me off this picture, and it's this picture of a GoFundMe. And it's for this person, Brett Schneff, who was like one of my best friends in the industry. And I literally didn't know what to do. I just like, Jesus Christ, like, oh my God. Like, anyways, it I kind of feel that Brett was in the industry for a long time, working at Microsoft. In fact, the original Xbox, really big, huge controller, which the nickname for that is called the Duke, which is actually named after his son Duke. So Brett's had a real impact in the industry, and it was horrible to see for us to lose him. Um, so the whole takes a village thing is about how do we take care of each other better, and there's no easy answers for this. But I met you, Jason, about two and a half weeks ago or so, and we had a chat, and we ended up talking for more than 3 hours, a little less than 3.5 hours straight. And what you and uh, Rise Above the Disorder have done is just unbelievable. I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. And one of the things that really bothers me, though, is that nobody told me about you guys. Like, I've been doing TIGs for 5 years now. I started it, 2.5 years of planning, finally got it off the ground, constantly asking, asking the industry, do we need something like this? And, getting industry support. And yeah, not one person had ever told me about you guys. And then you told me what you guys did. And I was even just like, we can learn so much from what you've done. And this is really where I'd like to be able to kind of steer this conversation to a certain extent, is to talk about, a little bit about who you guys, where you came from, and how can we learn what you guys have done for the community of gamers, and how can we use that for the industry itself. So you just want to give me give us a couple of minutes, or, take your time, tell us about you guys, what you've done, etc.
Sure, sure. I appreciate the platform. I mean, this is a really important conversation, and that harsh reality. We're seeing what is happening to people who have built this industry, who have made so much of this possible. I mean, there's a lot to it, right? Which we'll break down. To contextualize. RAD, myself. We're a World of Warcraft guild turned nonprofit. We started this almost 10 years ago, as just a group of gamers that struggled with anxiety, struggled with depression. Myself in particular, at like my worst point, really, not wanting to be here anymore, but feeling as if I maybe had to convince somebody else to stay, that life was worth living, and that would balance somehow me no longer living. And doing that through World of Warcraft, very quickly built a community of others that wanted to help, wanted to listen, be heard. Eventually became a group of people finding therapists for anybody that joined the guild, to a group of people crowdfunding to cover the cost of mental health care, because we'd find these incredible therapists for people, and they simply couldn't afford them. We've been doing that for such a long time now. It's progressed to helping a little over 37,000 people receive free mental health care across 133 countries. And throughout that time, lots and lots of people from the industry, lots of content creators have found their way into our programs, not necessarily needing us to cover their mental health care, but needing help finding somebody that would actually understand them, that wouldn't tell them to just log off, wouldn't tell them that they just need to stop playing games so much, but really understood and could hear them out and could appreciate the demands of working in the gaming industry, and kind of the harsh reality of, you either crunch or get crunched. It's a frustrating place to be in. But we've been doing that for so long. We've also started to develop ways of working with a lot of these studios and publishers and developers to be more proactive, to address mental health concerns before they get to this point, to make sure that people within the industry have this resource, have this network of professionals they can see, and to keep that anonymous and as fast and simple as possible, because that's how it really needs to be right now.
There's a lot of different ways somebody within the industry or somebody as a gamer can get to that point. That point. I've been there many times. Still happens. It's life. I deal with it. I think there's probably generalizing very much, but there's two different types of people in this industry as far as I'm concerned. There's the people that think it's cool to get a job as a coder, as an artist, project manager, things like that. They get in here and then they realize that, this is a really tough job. And, I'm working at least 60 hours, if not 80 hours a week. And it's affecting me and it's affecting everybody around me. And you'll find that those people will, they'll stay in the industry for maybe 2, 3, 4 years, 4 years maximum, and then they'll move on. Go to Google, they'll go to Facebook, they'll get twice the amount of money, they'll get less, dramatically less stress. And they'll just kind of decide, I'd rather be a gamer than actually working in the gaming industry itself. But then you've got this other side, people like me, Dean, you, I'm sure, where this is it. I'm not doing anything else for the rest of my life. And when I first got into the industry, I didn't know that was going to be it. But after being in the industry for a couple of years, I was just like, well, it's bad. And, I get bad and I'll get really down, but I'd still rather be doing this than doing something else. So you've got these other people that we're just not leaving. We're going to stay here no matter what. And that's kind of an issue on its own because you're devoting so much of yourself, your entire life and work to your passion of being in the industry. But what happens when, and this goes back to the whole suicide thing, is that what happens when, you lose your job and, you'll spend the next 5, 10, sometimes less than that, trying to get back inside the industry, and you can't. And at some point, people just give up. And I'm not going to bring up any other names, but there's a lot of them. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure.
In regards to, we're probably too fanatical about what we're doing, and we're probably causing our own harm ourselves. But the industry itself could probably help us, though. But how would they really do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of pieces to it. I think from the management perspective, I've talked with a lot of managers who, they're the ones that are really ordering a lot of these tough hours. They're the ones that have to communicate so many of these things, and they got into the industry oftentimes with the same mentality as everybody else that's actively working on the game. They're dream builders. They're putting together these fantasy worlds, these places that many of us as like the players live through. They're putting together so many incredible things, and the time that it takes to do that, the expectations of when a game needs to come out, the amount of money that goes into this process and how quickly it disappears. I hear a lot of developers talk about this, that it's a race against time, and you're either going to put in more hours in a day so that the money lasts a bit longer, or you're going to run out and this game isn't going to go anywhere, and all of that can be lost. And when you go from that level of, from the developer side to the manager who's trying to organize all of this, to ownership who has this vision and wants to see this, to then the investor who wants to get a return on this, wants this to be sustainable. It seems like there's a lot of pressure on all ends, but what is coming out of that whole process is not only not good for the bottom line, But more importantly, it's just not good for the people. It's not good for anybody at any level, and it's not good for the industry as a whole. And specifically, what's not good is kind of the crunch mentality that developers can go from studio to studio in crunch time on contract, only to, once they finally finish up there, be moved to another studio while it's in crunch time to do that contract and then keep going. There's a thought that that might be possible because there's so many people trying to get into the industry that you have enough passion behind them that they'll accept that condition and accept that that's what's going on. But that is not an infinite resource. It is a huge problem to work that way. Even if we just remove the morals, the ethics of why we shouldn't do that to people who are bright and excited and passionate, or have families, have friends, have a life that they should be able to equally enjoy. People who are able to balance their passion with things outside of work perform significantly better. They engage much better. We've seen study after study show what happens to people when they miss sleep. It really, really messes with us. It increases anxiety, depression, likelihood of suicide, likelihood of stroke, heart attack. So to imagine a developer needing to push 16 hours, especially as a game is getting ready for launch, knowing even too that when it launches, it's probably not going to be done to completion, and then the community is going to yell at them on Twitter. What is the mindset of so many of the developers right now? And yeah, you might crunch them and just move them on, but they're just going to take that mindset from studio to studio to studio, and then games are going to be caught in this infinite cycle of a bunch of people really struggling at every level and games coming out really bad, or incomplete. I see that with some of the biggest title games, and the community of gamers is saying, why are so many games now coming out like this? They're pointing the finger at it. It's got to be money. It's got to be these investors. It's just, this is becoming too much of a business industry. But I don't think that's the case. I really think it is the case that it is an issue of not seeing the value of each individual within a studio, within a publisher, within these different game creating organizations, and just recycling all of that pain and shuffling that around. That if we could just double down on wellness initiatives, if we could double down on creating better lifestyles and better work-life balance at each studio, that things coming out will still come out in the right time frames. They'll come out significantly better. Somebody doubling down on hours doesn't mean more work done. It means more mistakes made, which then results in more work needed to be put in to fix those mistakes.
Yep. You hit on some really interesting things right there. One of the things that I wanted to kind of add to what you were saying in regards to these people moving around from crunch to crunch to crunch, is that us people have been in the industry for a long time. We know that, well, most of us that have been in for like 15, 20 years, we kind of got our niche, and we work that niche. But these younger kids that are coming in here, there's like 100 or 1,000 people directly behind you that want your job. They don't realize how hard you're working. They don't realize what your pay might be. They don't realize any of those negative things until they get in there. So I wanted to say that's one of the problems also, is that if you want to be in the industry, and you want to be working on especially cool projects, great franchises, things like that, then you're just going to have to suck it up and, suck that up, unfortunately, and just accept that that's the way it is. This kind of leads into another issue with the industry, which is ageism. I turned 56 this past December, turning 57 this year. If I wasn't doing TIGs, I would not be doing anything. I have friends in the industry. There's a lot of us that, got our foothold in the industry, like, around, 95 or so. And just those people are just like holding on to that last job that they have as long as they can. And what I see happening, unfortunately, is that they'll get pushed out. And the reason why is because the company will be able to find somebody that is younger, has more energy, willing to put in those 80-hour days, willing to take half your salary. And then you're kind of on the outside. And then you're just reaching out to everybody you know to try to find a job. And, this, as I said before, can lead down a really dark path, unfortunately. So that's ageism, big, huge issue. And it's because of the industry itself and the age of the industry itself, this is only going to get worse. We're going to be seeing this getting worse more and more, especially over the next 5 or 10 years or so. And then even, just, working in the industry and having some sort of mental health illness. The very first TIGs that I put on, I wasn't able to really get any men. I had 1 or 2 people that were there that were willing to talk about their illness. They didn't, most people didn't want to, I don't care. I talk about it. I have no issue talking about it in the least bit at all. The last, TIGs this past October, we went from like 0 to 100. Like, it was just unbelievable how many people came forward, some for the very first time. So that's another problem, is that, if you admit that you've got some sort of, issue, illness like that, that can close a lot of doors. I even had somebody say to me that I used to work for, had they known that I had a mental health illness, they would not have hired me originally. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? You just said that? I didn't say that right then and there. I just kind of like gritted my teeth. But still, it was like, how could you say that? So,
yeah, I think sorry to interrupt.
No,
I know
ahead,
you've got
please.
a couple of good points here. So some of what comes to mind is, I really believe that the industry is going to get better. I think that there is a lot of interest that is starting to come up, because people are starting to kind of pull back and see, when you look at it again at this holistic level, you've just got a series of people that are really trying to reach different goals, and that lack of alignment is probably what causes so much chaos. You've got an investor who's got a bunch of money at stake and needs to see that come back, and those are people that we often tend to have the least sympathy for. But then you go to like the owner, the person who started this studio, who wants to see this continue to grow, but also realizes that it takes a lot of money to grow, and their focus increasingly becomes, how do I just bring in more dollars so that we can keep doing this? Which goes down to management, who is just like, how do I make these dollars the most efficient, effective as possible so that we don't run out before a game is done? And then you go down to the developer, who is like, how do I get all of the things that need to be done with how few hours there are in the day to actually get this done? And everybody is kind of pushing that pressure downward to take care of themselves. It's building a whole team of people who are supposed to function in this perfect circle, but effectively are just pushed further and further down, I guess, in the food chain, and used in that way. It makes sense that you'd want to bring in really young people who have a ton of energy, who are willing to take less, because for the manager side, it's like, great, you can work more hours and be cheaper. Well, that makes it easier to answer to my higher up, who they can say it makes it easier to report to their high up. And it's just this cascade there, versus, taking a moment to acknowledge that a lot of the hiccups right now, a lot of the pain points are coming from the fatigue. They're coming from people that are unhappy, who are able to perform well because of that struggle. The amount of developers that have come to us who are in the midst of a divorce because they've been sleeping at the studio the last few weeks, that person is not performing. That person is suffering, and it's something they've taken on. Managers have to walk that fine line of, is this even legal? But these developers are wanting to do that. They're afraid they're going to get pushed out of the industry if they don't. They're likely very passionate and committed to the project at hand, and so they want to make this possible. But what they're being asked to do is literally killing them. And we have to really acknowledge that and focus on that and start building upward. It'll make everybody much happier than going downward, putting all of the pressure downward. So I think focus on the developer side, and making sure that managers and developers have a healthier relationship, and that owners, the executive team, and investors understand that this initial focus to put more resources into wellness will actually lead to better performance, better ROI, and just a healthier industry that fields more people. When we look at ageism, it's a really interesting piece, because you maybe don't want to bring on a more senior developer because they won't work as many hours, or maybe they'll be more resistant to doing that. They have a life outside of this. They have other passions that they've been able to cultivate over time, that they don't want to give up. There might be some of that thought process, but what are we missing there? We're missing somebody who has worked on so many games and understands this process, understands how harmful some of the current practices can be. Somebody who's going to catch, the mistakes that junior, level developer hasn't seen, because they're still new to it. There's so many reasons to bring that together, and not, just focus on younger, more willing to sacrifice, more hours to put in, more energy to put in. It takes a village. It makes a ton of sense here, even in the context of when we look at ourselves as a village, when we look at this industry as a village, we need elders just as much as we need these new young hunters, foragers. We need everybody involved. We can't push others out, and we certainly can't create this huge barrier where, if you've managed to survive all of this, you're at the very top, but have become so disconnected in what it's like to be at the bottom. That needs to go as well. It's just not a complete ecosystem, and it comes with all of the pain points. So I think that the industry, does have some work to do, but it's definitely worth it, and we're starting to see it more and more. I think of groups like Jagex, the makers of RuneScape, where they just have a ridiculous amount of resources committed to employee health and wellness, community building. I mean, the people that work there really seem to love being there and don't have that huge crunching mentality. They still have deadlines, they still have patches, they have a new game they're working on. But people there seem to have the right balance. And it shows. This is a game that is how old? And is still incredibly profitable, successful. Some of the people there, many of the people there have been there since the beginning. A lot of studios can't say that, especially some of the big ones who, without naming names, even recently lost who's probably the last iconic figurehead. That's not a good sign.
I want to say thanks to Dean for allowing us to have this really, it's a tough talk, but I'm glad we're having this talk. And Jason, thank you so much. And, keep doing what you're doing, because you're having an impact, and you're having an impact around the world. I want to work with you guys even more now, and I want to be able to see you guys take this and keep growing it, and bring it to the industry and take all those lessons you've learned and things like that. I just absolutely love what you guys are doing. It's just outstanding. So please keep it going.
I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me this platform, for doing everything that you've done. I think for this industry, for mental health, it's really important. And I appreciate Dean for making this possible, and VentureBeat for putting all of this together so that we can have this conversation.
All right, cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.